Are you ready to unlock the secrets of brand innovation? Here you'll discover unexpected ways to make your brand soar in value. Get ready for inspiring stories, actionable tips, and insights you'll need to build your brand and learn an entirely new way to fly. This is the Hummingbird Effect. And now your host, Wendy Coulter.
I'm Wendy Coulter, president of Hummingbird Creative Group, where we help CEOs and marketing leaders unlock the hidden power of their brands. For years, business leaders have focused on marketing tactics, but what truly matters is building a strong brand. Have you ever experienced a hummingbird effect? Like the co-evolution of the hummingbird and the flower, this is when small innovations in branding or marketing can lead to surprisingly big results in other unrelated areas of a business, like an increased valuation, a stronger culture, or an operational breakthrough. Today, I have Hummingbird's marketing strategist, Hanna Jernigan, with me. Hey, Hanna, how are you doing this
Hello.
morning?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited about today's guest, Hanna. This guest got introduced to us by someone else that we had on the show. Her name is Kedma Ough with Ninja VA, and she's going to dive deeper with us into the world of brand building and how seemingly small innovations in branding, marketing, or sales can lead to big wins in other areas of the business. Hanna, I know you always do a little research ahead of time. So tell us, do you have any fun facts today about Kedma?
Yeah. It's more of just a quick synopsis of what I was able to learn from about her. But at 18, Kedma got out of a really tough situation, resulting in her needing to lay low for many years. In doing that, she lost everything twice. But each time she rebuilt by working hard and staying focused on helping others. So now she's known as a small business superhero, which is a nice way to say she's all about rising up and leading with her heart. And she has a TED Talk. So Kedma, welcome to the show. Can you tell us a little bit more about you and your company?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, behind me, if you're watching, is all my capes. So I do have a purple cape.
Look
Yeah,
at
so
you.
I do wear capes on stage. It is my uniform, and it does really speak to the work I do in the world. Yeah, I'm privileged to be the COO of Ninja VA. It is actually a virtual assistant placement agency for the home service space. So think window cleaning or pressure washing, HVAC, electrical. And so day in, day out, these business owners are working so hard in the front line, and they really need a team a lot of times behind the scenes to help them build. So it's kind of like building a new hybrid workforce where you have people in the US and then you have people abroad helping to build the vision of a business.
So how did you come up with this, Kedma? What background led you to do this?
So let me share a little bit about my background. See, I'm a serial entrepreneur. So when you meet a serial entrepreneur, they are like in multiple things, doing multiple businesses. Where Jen and I met, who was one who referred me, was through an organization originally called Conquer, and I was the integrator. I helped build basically one of the fastest growing coaching companies in the home service industry. And in 3 years, we got acquired by an amazing company called House Call Pro. And House Call Pro is one of the largest software CRMs in the country for home service. So during that time, I've had the privilege of coaching some of the best coaches in the entire industry. Through that, I met a gentleman named Brandon Lazar. And Brandon became a certified coach with us, spent years working with us, and then he sold his window cleaning company and then started Ninja VA because he was having a hard time during, the whole transition of sometimes finding people or sometimes being able to, bring on someone at the US rate, and really started to build a whole platform around virtual assistants. So Brandon Listar started Ninja VA, and then 18 months later, he wooed me to join as a partner in crime and really help build Ninja VA. So that's a little bit about the dynamics.
I love it. It's all about those connections. And that
Always about the hummingbird effect. Yes.
yeah, that's fabulous. Well, let's transition into that then, Kedma. Um, let's see what kind of like specific instance you can think of and share with us where a seemingly small change in your company's marketing or brand strategy led to a significant and positive outcome or results for the business.
Gosh, I love that question. Well, I'll ask both of you before I answer it, so they're both separate, Wendy and Hanna. Have either of you ever worked with a virtual assistant before? Someone from abroad?
I have not worked with one directly before, but I know a lot of ladies who are CEOs and presidents of their companies who do, and I've actually considered it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And Hanna, same question.
I have not. No.
Okay. Well, the reason I bring it up is before I answer that question, 15 years ago, so I am a mother of 3 boys, 2 of them autistic. And 15 years ago, I was managing a full-time business. I am happily married, but as a mom, I was managing the children. And I was so overwhelmed that I received a book called The 4-Hour Work Week with Tim Ferriss.
Yes.
You've read the book. Okay, so I read the book, and in reading the book, I was like, wait a minute. You mean I could really hire a VA? Like they actually exist? You mean someone can really help me? And that's what started my journey. And so now, fast forward 15 years later, when you asked this question, was there something seeming that really sort of sparked a new way of thinking about, marketing or branding? When I joined Ninja VA, we were a placement agency, which is why I asked the question, because most virtual assistant companies are placement agencies. So what they say is, hey, Wendy, do you need someone to help you? Great. Tell me who you need. Tell me what the profile is. And I'm going to go out and try to find that person, essentially headhunt, if there's somewhere there, or we're going to recruit and we're going to place someone like a Hanna, right? We're going to pretend Hanna's a virtual assistant. We're going to put Hanna in your company and you're going to be super happy. Now, it sounds so great. Like philosophically, and that's any nightmare. Why? Because Hanna comes from a different culture. Hanna thinks and operates differently. Hanna may not be used to your leadership style. Hanna has no idea what Wendy really does except for what she says she does. And so we get the culture leadership clash because most agencies stop at placement. So the one aha, Wendy, to answer your question is, when I came in, I said, we are no longer a placement agency. We're a coaching company. That's a big difference. The reason why we're a coaching company is because the magic is not in the placement. The magic is ensuring that once we place, that the relationship stays solid long term. So that's why we train and coach the pros at no cost to. It's built into the formula, so no additional cost. And we train and coach the VA so that it's harmonious, hummingbird effects, into the relationship once that match happens.
Awesome. So let's talk about that mind shift within the Ninja VA space, right? So going from a staffing company to a coaching company.
Yes.
How did you implement that change? Did you use some innovation as you were implementing that change? And how did you get buy-in from talk about culture shift, right?
Yeah, it's a big culture
How did
shift.
you make that culture shift within the organization?
I think one of the things I want to encourage is we are, in some ways, we handicap ourselves with all these tools, the ChatGPTs of the world, the processes of the world. And sometimes we have to go back to basics, just meaningful conversation, creating imagination. And it's really interesting to note that if you empower a small group of people to see what's possible, you change the entire organization. And so many organizations don't understand that. So when I went back and I asked very simple questions, what is the friction happening? and the team would say, well, this pro is upset because, Hanna doesn't understand what it means to actually meet the key performance metrics. Or, sorry, Hanna, I'm picking on you. Or Hanna doesn't understand, that, she has to be assertive when she's working with U.S. customers. Or Hanna doesn't understand, like, the language and wording she uses is not appropriate. I realized, and they realized, well, wait a minute. Why are we expecting the leader of these organizations to know what the heck they should do? What is wrong with us? We are the experts. We are the experts, not them. And so it was an easy culture shift. We did have to change titles. So the biggest titles that were changed were HR managers are now called success coaches. That was a big shift. So, and then director of sales is now director of client success. So that was a big shift. And the truth is, honestly, Wendy, the team was so excited.
Yeah. Well, so talk about that impact. Like, how did this small shift change the trajectory of the business?
Yeah. So the first thing we started noticing is immediately low retention. So we were having fewer people who wanted to transition out because now we were involved as partnership. The second thing, which was very delightful and very interesting, is when I onboarded, the average customer was only taking on one VA. But with the introduction of the idea of coaching and supporting and being there, we were seeing them say, can I have a second VA? Can I have a third VA? Can I have a fourth VA? Because now they were introducing them in different departments. Oh, let me put one in finance. Let me put one in branding. Let me put one in customer service. Let me put one in sales. And so what happened was this beautiful hybrid where it wasn't like they were, it wasn't like they were shrinking. They were actually expanding their organizations as a result of the support we were doing. So we were again, coming alongside them saying, listen, we want you to grow, but let us take on some of that burden of that relationship. Because honestly, Wendy, and you know this as well as I do, relationships are tough.
Oh, yeah. Very tough. Very
right?
tough.
People don't need this money. Yeah.
I think the fear with VA, at least a fear that I've had, so I'm assuming that other people will have it. One, I'm at the top of my organization, so how much do I need to share? This person is offshore. What do they need to know? Am I going to be able to trust them?
Yes.
And then beyond that, how much time is it going to take me to bring them up to speed? And are they really going to understand and get it? And are they going to be able to do everything I need them to do? And it feels like a lot of work. And what if it doesn't work out? Which it's the same problems that we have when we are looking just to hire a person on staff. But it feels more risky. So talk about that a little bit.
Let's talk about that. So first of all, I want to surprise the audience. English is my second language. While I was born in the U.S., I actually grew up in the Middle East. Oh. And so I had to learn English at age 7. And, my husband and I have been happily married for 21 years, Wendy. But when I am angry, he's getting it in my language. Okay. So, and if he hears in my language, oh boy, right. Here we go. Right. So, we are wired as we're wired. So let me answer the first question. The first question is a really valid one. How can I trust these people? Right. I mean, if they're not here, how can I trust them? So I don't tell everyone everything I have done because you wouldn't believe me, but you can fact check me, Hanna. So I was head of innovation for an amazing college here in Oregon, and I actually seeded the first ever cybersecurity business program, small business clinic program out of the college. And because of my background in cybersecurity, I will tell you that inherent inside threat is not going to be the VA. It's going to be your partner or your sister or brother or someone in-house that just is going to retaliate, okay? And if you want to be really cautious, we have things called administrative controls, right? We have check and balances, and there are things we can do to build trust. But A lot of times, the hackers out there are like everyday people, it's not going to be someone who is working really hard in another country and it's their livelihood. Like they're not going to screw that up. Having said that, at Ninja VA, we actually do mandatory screenshots. So you can see at every point what's going on. Now, I don't believe in micromanaging, so I say trust but verify. But there have been situations where, let's pick on Wendy now. The Wendys of the world call and say, hey, I'm on and I noticed that, well, I'm not at church, but this person's online and doing church things. And so, yeah, of course, immediately we wonder, well, are they doing something like, are they working a second job? And in this actual true case situation, we pulled it. We had a meeting with the VA. And you know what really happened, Wendy? What really happened was the VA in the Philippines, his computer broke. He was too embarrassed to tell his employer. So he was saving money to try to get a computer. So what was he doing in the meantime? He was borrowing his wife's computer. And so his wife had to get on because his wife worked at the church. So him and his wife were working. And it just broke my heart that he didn't have enough confidence and safety to tell the employer, which is why we became the coaching company, because I said to my team, we will never be in that situation again. I want to create a safe environment where our VAs know that we are the employer. And even though we have a third party where they're going placement, we are the employer and we're going to create a safe environment. So that screenshot happens. The second thing you say is, oh my goodness, how am I going to train them? Do I have time? There's so much to cover. Wendy, welcome to entrepreneurship. There's nobody, Hanna, that comes to me and says, I just want you to know I own a company and I have so much time with it. I have so much time.
We said that yesterday. It's weird that you said that.
So we know no one has time. So what we do is we set people up. So I would work with you, Wendy, and I'd say, great. Before you even think about training, show me your training plan. And Wendy's going to say, I don't have a training plan. Great. How about you and I work on a training plan so I can streamline what you are about to do? So we're not doing this we're doing it with you. And then what I would do is I would work backwards. I would say, Wendy, what are the KPIs? What are the key performance you want to meet? Well, I want to have an empty email box. Great. What's your email look like right now? I have 3,000 email. Oh, okay. Well, let's set a goal for that.
How many emails do you have, Wendy?
Wendy, how many emails do you have?
340,000.
Wait, no way. She's just playing with us. No, she's kidding.
Yeah. I'm not kidding.
How does your computer run?
So Wendy, yes, we would set that goal.
Wow.
Probably would not be done in a week. We'd probably have to negotiate.
Yes, it will if you just push Control delete.
Yeah, we don't want to push delete. But we would want to put it in nice folders and have you review it. And then
I didn't mention the ones that are in folders.
Yeah, no. Leave them there hidden. You haven't needed them yet.
I just know. And the third one is, will it work, or can I trust, or, is it worth it? Again, look at your finances. I'm working with a landscaping company who has 25 VAs. And I said, he's doing about 7 million. I said, could you afford 25 VAs in the US? He said, absolutely not.
Right.
Couldn't afford it. And so, and then there may be some disparity here where people say, well, are you stealing money from, US teams? No, absolutely not. A lot of times the VAs are coming alongside the administrative coordinator. So they're not going to be they may not necessarily be the virtual assistant for Wendy. They're virtual assistant for Hanna. Because if Hannah's getting paid $40 an hour or $50 an hour, why would she want to do or should do $7 or $8 or $9 task work? That doesn't make sense. That's not efficient. So again, it's more about how do we buy back time that's more efficient to do the things that we can do better than no one else.
So let me ask a question, Kedma. When you came into the organization, can you give us kind of a snapshot of the number of employees, like full-time
Yep.
employees working for the company,
Yes.
and then contractors when it
Yes.
was a staffing company, and then kind of where you are today, and then talk me through the positive consequences that this had on the people and their morale
Love that.
in this situation.
Yes. So a couple of things. One is all of our VAs are full time, so we have 200 of them currently. But we're scaling very fast. So on average, we're placing anywhere between 15 to 20 a month. So that's a pretty progressive way of, our movement. And as a result of that, actually this week, we have just onboarded our director of franchise partnership. So he will be exclusively working within franchises. I own actually a franchise. Superb Mates in Portland, Oregon is an extension of franchise. So I buy into that process. So we have 200. And then in our internal team, meaning managing the day-to-day operations, it's a relatively small team. We have myself, director of success, Christopher, and then we have another person onboarding soon. Rebecca will be joining us in the same capacity. And then we have two success lead. We have a lead success manager, and then we have a success coach, and then we have an assistant success coach. So it's under 10. And one of the reasons we do it that way is I don't believe in inflating,
Right.
the workforce unless it's necessary. And as we need it, we bring on more people. So I think I answered that question. Do we have any contractors? No contractors currently.
Okay.
Hey listeners, if you're enjoying the Hummingbird Effect, there's a special treat just for you. The team has put together a free downloadable resource that maps out 20 reasons why having a branding strategy is essential for your business. It's packed with valuable insights that help you understand the power of effective branding. Don't miss out. Download it now by visiting the website hummingbird-creative.com or checking the link in the show notes.
So, how did your culture really change? What were the positive consequences that would change when you went from staffing to
Yes.
VA?
So one of the things that's important to realize is the dynamics of so a lot of the team, first of all, let's talk about the VAs in general, and then let's talk about the internal team. Many of them have worked in other call centers or other VA firms, and it's very transactional. And it's very, there's a hierarchy where the power is very prominent. So because of this power play, what happens is in certain cultures, especially in Asian cultures, with the power play, it becomes very difficult for there to be true, honest conversation. Because the power play is almost the antithesis of having true, powerful conversations, because someone in a lower rank is not going to challenge Wendy.
Right.
They're not going to. Let's be real. Now, because of my background and my sensitivity culture, and actually I come from a part of the Middle East where women are very assertive because we are required to go into military for 2 years. And I don't want to disclose the country, but you can figure out which country that is, and you can understand, we don't have an issue challenging, but in a lot of countries it is. So the first thing I did when I came on, Wendy, because I knew that was the culture, I said, nobody gets credit here if your voice isn't heard. The second thing I said is, I expect you to challenge me. I expect you to challenge me, because to assume that I know everything is false. And even I have inherited blind spots where I may not see everything correctly. So you need to come in and you need to say, no, Miss Kedma, here's what I see. No, Miss Kedma, here's what I understand, or I disagree. And we need to have a safe environment to have agreements and disagreements. That's what I need. And if I want a robot, I will hire ChatGPT or an AI agent. But so long as you're a human here, you need to be able to have your voice. Now, Wendy, that was very hard. I just spoke to someone yesterday that we just gave them a raise, and I said, listen, my feedback to you is I need you to have a voice in the conversations we have. And your voice has to be heard. And he said, Miss Kedma, I'm really working on it. I'm really working on it, right? Because what's happening in the brain is they're not used to it.
Right. Culturally, they're
Culturally, like you're asking me to go, you're asking me to challenge the boss.
Yeah.
But in challenging the boss, you realize that all the boss cares about is what's best for the company.
So, Kedma, as you moved from staffing to VA, it seems to me you must have changed the name of the company. Is that the case?
Nope. Still Ninja VA.
Right.
Still fell right in mark. Yep.
Okay. So even when you were the staffing company,
Yep.
it was
Yep.
Ninja VA. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That makes sense. So tell me what you learned from the Hummingbird Effect that maybe you have a new approach to your branding and marketing, or maybe it even affects you in your other businesses. Can you talk a little bit about whether you've learned from this?
I think what I've always learned is, and what I continue to learn, and yes, I operate like this in my other businesses. My cleaning company is in the same follows the same philosophy. What I find the most rewarding is when an employee tells me how happy they are to show up to work. One of the people who works with us lost her husband at a very young age and has to care for her kids and just got promoted. And when she said to me, I read my promotion letter 5 times and I couldn't wait to go and celebrate with my kids. What I consider that in my mind, Wendy, is something I call generational wealth.
Yeah.
That we are changing that environment. And when people walk into their office, whether they're at home or, they say to me sometimes, I need to take a break. I say, I don't care. I don't care if you're on the beach doing the work. Just, I'm very results driven, but I don't care how it's done, when it's done, where it's done. This kind of freedom, they say to me, like, I feel like I'm in a company where I have freedom. And so I would question the companies you're interviewing that when they talk about benefits, when they talk about health benefits, when they talk about compensation, how many say, do you provide freedom as one of the benefits?
Love it.
Yeah, that would be it.
Love it. So that freedom,
that's the Hummingbird Effect. The
Yes.
freedom to live your life in a way that has joy and harmony and be compensated for it is freedom.
So how do you feel other companies can adapt?
Great question.
Yeah.
Great question. So let me speak to leadership. There are multiple types of leadership, but I'll speak to 5. All right. And then as I speak to it, I'm going to ask Wendy, which leader are you? So that we can understand. And Hanna, I'm going to ask, which leader are you?
Okay.
There we go. So you get to participate in the experience. The first leader is we call the democratic leader. They don't make any decision without interviewing every single person on the team. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? My goodness, I am not a democratic leader. Nothing gets done with democracy that way. Maybe in the government, but not in business. Very tough. The second kind of leader is very task-driven. It's like, did you get this done? What is this? Task-oriented, task-driven, bureaucratic, no emotional connection. It's like if the task is done, that's all they care about. The third type of leader is what I call laissez-faire leader. They're actually hands-off. They're more of a mentor because they expect the person in the role is going to drive the project. They're going to own the project. They're going to own the department. They're not going to be micromanaging them. They are the kind of that laissez-faire leaders hire people who they would work for. So like there's this relationship of you're smarter than me in this role. What do I need to do to support you and mentor you? The fourth kind of leader is charismatic, inspirational. They somehow can bring magic where people will follow them, just like hairdressers. I tell my hairdresser, if you ever leave, just to let me know. I don't know who cares about the damn salon. I'll just follow you wherever you go. And I do, right? Because there's something powerful about leadership, right? So if you are a charismatic leader, you create such a dynamic setup in the environment that people will follow you wherever you go, right? And then there's a last one, and I can't remember it because I don't practice it. Oh, yeah, I do practice it actually. Autocratic leadership. But I do permissive autocratic. There's a difference. So autocratic leadership is very military style. This has to be done. You have to do it this way. I operate permissive autocratic in certain situations, which means, hey, Wendy, this needs to get done. Do it however you want, but I get the final review, or I get the final say, or I get the final moment. And that way, I give you permission to run with it, but the final decision sticks with me. Usually in situations where there is potential financial loss or something like that, I could play there. Okay, Wendy, what kind of leader are you?
It might depend on the day, but
Where do you gravitate?
Yeah, where I try to be, I think is actually that permissive autocratic that you're talking.
Permissive autocratic, great leadership. Great leadership.
There's a piece of charismatic and a piece of laissez-faire, but I think that comes together in autocratic in some ways. So that would be where I think I am.
So I think permissive autocratic is great. Then I would encourage you that as you build your team, try to find people that you would work for. That means that they're smarter than you. Right. And then you could be more laissez-faire and less permissive autocratic. Right. Hanna?
My initial thought was she's not going to like my answer because I feel like I feel like it's the different tasks of how I
task-oriented
approach them. If it's something that
Hanna, that's why I love you. You get it done.
Yeah, I don't know though, but I also feel like it just depends on what it is that needs to be done of how I tend to manage it.
So think about though, take it away from what you do every day and think about leadership. So
leadership,
correct. How you're leading Nicole on the team, how you're leading our intern, how you're leading not necessarily the client project work that you do, the tactical.
Right. It's very different.
But your leadership role and where do you think you are?
Yes. Where's like the cheerleader at?
That's charismatic.
Okay, there we go.
There you go. Yeah. That's the cheerleader, the inspiration, the one who creates a space where people are inspired to become the best version of themselves.
Yeah, I hope I do that.
We can ask your intern afterwards.
Yeah.
So I would say, Wendy, the answer to how can companies do it, find out what their leadership style is first, and then everything works on the top. Get very clear on what their mission is and what their values are, and make sure it's embedded into everything they do. And the last thing I would tell you, which they're not going to want to hear, but I don't know if you guys know how many people I have consulted over the course of 25 years, 30,000 businesses. And the number one issue I see when I go into companies is that they allow toxic leadership to stay. It is unbelievable. It's abhorrent to me, and I cannot understand it. But I will watch people leave after one person, 2 people, 5 people, 10 people, 30 people, and they will keep the toxic leader in place. Get rid of them. Get rid of them. It is cancer in the company.
So I want to take us in a little bit different direction now with another question, Kedma, around innovation and experimentation. How do you see that playing a role in creating breakthroughs in Hummingbird Effect?
So I told you I didn't want to disclose everything I do, but, since I was a former innovation director, I have been in inventorship for 20 years. I actually created an organization called MIPO many years ago, which was all around helping inventors go from ideation to commercialization.
Awesome.
I worked with one of the sharks for many years to help inventors go. And I'm an inventor myself. I invented a product called Lolly Good when my son was very young, because we would argue when he was very, very young, because he always wanted candy. And I always told him to have his peas and carrots. And we would have this argument back and forth. And then one night I went to bed and I woke up at 2 a.m. and I was like, oh my gosh, I finally have it. So I called my sister. She's like, is everything okay? I'm like, I have this idea. She's like, it's 2 a.m. I go, when do you think ideas happen? You think it's in 2 p.m? It's always around 2 a.m. And the idea was, what if I could create a candy that provided probiotics and protein and fiber, so I wasn't fighting with my son? And that idea birthed a concept called Lolly Goods, which was actually the first lollipop to infuse probiotics, protein, and fiber, so that when I was handing him that candy, it was healthy candy. And so I have worked for years working with inventors and for years around innovation. And my 5th grade teacher said in my yearbook, Kedma, keep believing in leprechauns and fairy tales and angels. And actually, I found him 5 years ago and I said, you know what? I am still believing in that. So let's start with what innovation looks like. The first thing we have to do is we have to go back and think about, where does imagination begin and end? Unfortunately, there is more imagination in a 3-year-old than there is in an average adult. Why? Because as an adult, we have been taught to not imagine, to not think out of the box. And how many times do we come up with a crazy idea and someone says it's not going to work? It doesn't make sense. That's a stupid idea. Why would you think about that? And yes, most of the craziest ideas had made millions of dollars. So the first thing you'd have to do if you want to get into the art of innovation is you have to set the scene to say, everything on the table is open for conversation. Everything. There is no bad idea. There is no bad thought. There is no bad imagination. You have to create a safety net. And the second thing you have to do is you have to force your mind to actually restart that part of your brain that really is dormant for most of us. Not for me, but for most of us. And I would say that we create a sandbox. So I like the idea of an idea sandbox. This is what I introduced at the university level. And the idea sandbox looks like this. Everyone in the organization can come up with a really cool idea. We look at the idea as a committee every single month. If we take that idea on just to even test for feasibility, that person gets paid for feasibility. If we move through the phases and it goes to first stage market, then that person gets compensated again. And then if it goes to commercialization, then that person gets compensated again, because it was the person with the idea that brought up the opportunity for it to commercialize. So you have to incentivize everyone in the organization. And so I would say that would be a fun way of doing it. Just create an idea sandbox and incentivize people for great ideas.
Love it. Love it. What do you think, Hanna? I mean, I love that. I love having the time and leaders that give you the time to think and to process things. And they don't always go everywhere. And I think that that's the harder thing from the leader's perspective, is watching me spend time and then I'm like, okay, I'm done with it. But it is really nice to have that, and you find out different processes that work rather than just being stuck in the same
Exactly.
things you've always done.
Yeah. And then the other thing I do is what I call the upside down pineapple cake. So you're going to take any department and you're going to come into work and you're going to turn it upside down. And you're going to say, okay, we're going to do everything backwards today. We're going to make everything upside down because, I know. Isn't that crazy?
I
Because
would get a rash.
Yeah. Nope. We're going to find the holes. We're going to find the gaps. We're going to find the inefficiencies. It is the smartest thing you can do. Switch everything upside down and have fun with it. Work backwards. Do something odd. Create something different, because the problem we have is our brain seeks comfort. But in comfort, innovation never is born.
Yeah. And it's having people on your team that are willing to do that.
Yes.
That's a good way to also find people who are just not going to ever make a change, and that you can't run your business like that all the time.
Then you have to look back to the culture. Mm-hmm.
Kedma, I really learned a lot from you speaking today, but what really stood out for me is that you didn't change what Ninja VA does.
That's right.
Instead, you changed how it thinks and how you all think.
Yes.
Shifting from a staffing mindset to a coaching mindset
Right.
sounds simple in theory, but it completely transformed your culture, the results, and the confidence of the people that you support.
Correct.
I really loved hearing how you spent time empowering teams by asking where's the friction, as you mentioned earlier,
Yes.
and then you really listened to what their answers were and found a solution from that.
Yeah.
It was just a good reminder that innovation doesn't always come from the top down. Sometimes it comes from creating that open, honest communication and being willing to challenge even your own leadership style.
Exactly.
And also hearing how you encourage your team to disagree with you,
Yes.
to challenge you. That takes a lot of courage as a leader and as a person in general. No one really likes to be told that they're wrong or questioned. But it also creates a kind of culture where people thrive and feel safe and bring their best selves and their whole selves to work. So that's really the Hummingbird Effect in action. It's a small shift in your language, your mindset, your approach, and it ripples outward and makes everything else better. So thank you for being so real with us today and showing us how to have heart and strategy and how those two things can really go hand in hand.
So, Hanna, I want to tag on here at Hummingbird Creative Group. We work with our clients just about every time that we do strategy with them, we're writing a positioning statement. And the piece of the positioning statement that almost seems the most obvious is frame of reference. So we're an architectural firm, we're an engineering firm, we're at this, we're at that, right? You shifted frame of reference, which is at the top of the positioning statement, as opposed to shifting the explanation of what it is that you do, which I think is really, really interesting. So I just wanted to throw that out there because this is a very minor shift, like in a strategic point where a lot of companies don't even think about it. They're just like, we're an architecture firm. We're this, we're that, we're a staffing company, and that's what we're doing. You know, you stopped it at a really significant point and said, well, what if we did this shift, you know? So I think that's amazing. That definitely rippled out to everything. And it has been so wonderful to spend time with you this morning. We appreciate your time and your energy. This has been an awesome episode. And I just want to say to the listeners, we also appreciate your time and energy this morning. And I hope we have brought you some joy. I think Kedma used my favorite word today. And go out and take in all of what she has shared with us and find your own hummingbird effect. Thank you, Kedma.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Hummingbird Effect with Wendy Coulter. We hope you found this episode valuable. Please be sure to rate and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. To learn more or to work with Wendy and her team, go to hummingbird-creative.com.